An overview of what is required for the first 3 generations for a DAR application and tips for where to search for the information. In this presentation, we will be discussing vital records and alternate documentation. According to genealogy guidelines found on the member's website, www.dar.org/members, the applicant should give complete dates and places for the first 3 generations, herself, her parents, and grandparents, as well as appropriate documentation to support these data. The applicant must provide a copy of her birth certificate or equivalent document naming both parents. It is expected that vital records such as birth and death records will be provided. Bible records and family genealogies are not acceptable documentation for the first 3 generations. Remember, all vital records are not found online. A site that we highly recommend for online vital records and information on ordering those that are not online, along with who has access, is www.deathindexes.com. It directly links to many of the records found on www.ancestry.com, a fee-based site, and www.familysearch.org, which is free. This example gives information for ordering main vital records: birth, death, marriage, and divorce. For death records, it shows the cost, address, and type of identification required. It is important to note that websites may not reflect the most current information about record availability. For example, this site indicates that records from 1892 to 1922 are housed at the main state archives. However, it was recently announced that digital death records for 1892 to the present are now available at the main Vital Records office. A careful researcher will search the Internet to discover possible recent changes announced by state and local government offices. Remember that access to vital records varies from state to state. As you just saw, Maine has very specific rules about who might order any specific vital record, while other states, like California, have few restrictions on who can order records for informational or genealogical purposes. Another valuable fee-based site is www.americanancestors.org. Although it has many of the same vital records found on Ancestry.com and FamilySearch.org, you can see that it has many records unique to the site, such as the American Canadian Genealogical Society Index of Baptisms, Marriages, and Burials, 1840 to 2000. When submitting vital records that appear online, an image of the actual record, if available, is preferred. Here is an example of a Pennsylvania death record from Ancestry.com. You can see that there is a transcription, but you can also view and print the actual image. When printing, please be careful not to cut off dates or places, and be sure the result is legible. This is an example from the www.germanroots.com website, which is similar to deathindexes.com. You can see that it displays the actual sites where the records are located, in this case, Ancestry.com and FamilySearch.org. It also describes the Alabama County marriages found at FamilySearch.org, as not yet fully indexed. However, please be aware that not all online vital records are listed on these sites. Some of the records found on FamilySearch.org, for instance, the California County Birth and Death Records 1800 to 1994, are not listed, so you should also check individual sites. Not all records found on these sites are acceptable as documentation for a DAR application or supplemental. For example, the Texas Birth Index found on Ancestry.com is usually acceptable because it contains essentially the same information found on birth certificates, including the parents' names. However, the Massachusetts Death Index is not acceptable because it only contains the person's name, year and place of death, and no other identifying information. In the rare instance that a vital record was not recorded or is inaccessible for the first 3 generations, you will need to search for acceptable alternate sources. The Registrar General's Department reserves the right to determine the acceptability of any source on any given application or supplemental. Following are some examples of alternate forms of acceptable documentation: baptismal records, birth announcements, applications for a Social Security number, passports, naturalization records, military records, marriage records, obituaries, funeral home records, cemetery records, burial administrative records, life insurance policies, school records, and driver's licenses. Let's take another look at deathindexes.com. Not only does this site link to death records, this example takes you to the North Dakota Department of Health site. In some instances, you may also find links to obituaries and other records, which may contain the required dates and places. Obituaries may even provide clues to lineage. Along with obituaries, local newspapers may also have birth announcements. Again, if a vital record was not recorded or is inaccessible, newspapers may provide the required information. Here are some examples of fee-based and free newspaper sites. From this example, you can see that not only does the google.com/newspapers site link to newspapers in this country, but it also provides links to some foreign newspapers as well. Don't forget that you can also look for newspapers specific to a community or population rather than geographical area. Also, many public libraries provide in-house or remote internet access to local news publications, along with major newspapers such as the New York Times and Washington Post. Further, your local library may offer access to Ancestry.com, HeritageQuest.com, or other genealogical websites. When searching online, always remember to search state websites for vital records or other genealogical links. These are just a few examples of some state government websites, some of which are included on deathindexes.com. See the handout for more information on what we have discussed here today. Thank you.